Welcome to a tutorial on how to use the printing press using a linoleum block for printmaking. So the first thing that you're going to do is get your carved out linoleum block, and you are going to want to place it down on this piece of newsprint that we have all ready to go right here. You're going to see that underneath that newsprint that I have down, it says newsprint right there. There's new sheets underneath this cart, so if it gets dirty, you can just replace that. You want to keep your inking knife on that newsprint so that that ink stays on top of that area that we can replace. And the brayer should always have that black bar touching the surface of our work surface. All right, you never ever want to have the rolling part of this face down because that's going to get covered in ink and it can damage it, so we always want that black bar down. Now the next thing on here we have is this inking plate. You are going to keep this in the spot on the left, and then we have our ink in the jar that stays in that spot there. So we're going to open up our ink, put it back down there, put the lid right next to it, and we're going to take our inking knife. All right, so this is an ink knife. We're going to scoop out about the volume of a grape. If you can think about a smushed grape, that's about how much ink you want. And you're just going to apply that in a straight line right at the top of that glass piece on our inking plate, so that's nice across the top there. Now with that knife, I'm going to place it down on my newsprint so that the handle lines up at the bottom where it should go. And I'm going to take my brayer, hold it in my hand, and start inking up my plate. So I'm going to just slowly start grabbing that ink with the rolling part and go forward, back, and let it roll, back, forward again. So forward, back, let it roll, forward, back, let it roll. Get some more ink if you don't have enough on there, and then you're going to want to start going in the opposite directions. Go perpendicular to the plate and keep switching between those two until you hear a nice velvety sound. It should have a lot of small peaks to it, not too much ink, but not too thin either, so you'll be able to kind of tell what it should look like. Once you have a good amount rolled out, you are going to start rolling it right onto your block. So make sure you get every single corner on there. You want to make sure that all of your surface has ink applied to it. So go over it a few times and then get some more ink loaded onto your brayer. You can go the other way again and start inking it up. You can do this in multiple different directions to make sure that you get all of those different angles on there. When you think you have enough ink, a nice consistent layer on there, you're going to take your brayer and lay it on that black bar back in the spot on our work surface. All right, put that cap back on the ink, and we are going to carefully lift up our linoleum block. All right, so lift it up at the bottom. Be careful not to get your fingers inky with it, so keep your hands underneath it, and then carefully move it over to our printing press. All right, I'm going to lay this down right where it says step 1, lay down linoleum here. So I'm going to line that up on that piece of paper. This is called our registration. So I'm going to lay that down. And then I am going to take my piece of paper that I'm printing on and lay it down on top of that so it lines up in that dotted line box that's laying right there. If you have watercolor or collage on your paper, you want to make sure it's facing the right way as you lower it down. Then I'm going to take these 2 wool sheets, lay it over on top of my block and my paper, and then I'm going to just slowly roll it through our press. And you'll see that this bar in the middle starts to spin, and that means that the plate is underneath it. And once it starts to slow down, I'm going to stop rolling and lift up these wool sheets again, and we are going to take a look at our print. So just carefully peel it up from a corner, and voila, you have your print all ready to go. And you can place that on the drying rack, and then to clean your plate, you're just going to take a wet paper towel and wipe it off like that. Make sure your name is always on the back of your print. All right, and now it's time for cleanup. So if you're the last person using this during class, you are going to want to grab your ink knife and scrape that ink off of your surface. Now, if you have a lot on our inking plate, you can collect it on that knife and then scrape it back into our ink jar. But if it's just a small amount, just wipe it off on a paper towel or put it in the garbage. And then we are going to rinse off all of our pieces. So just wipe that off, and then you are going to take it to the sink, and just using your fingers, you don't even need soap for this step, just use the friction of your fingertips and rub that ink so that it starts getting washed off within that water. Just make sure you get all of that residue removed, and that way it is ready to use for the next person, and that ink will not dry on our tools and ruin them. So just make sure you are very thorough with cleaning them, and then you return them right back to the spots that they belong on our ink carts where all of those supplies go. And for storing our work, you are going to keep it on the drying rack over by the window. Make sure it's in a place where it's not going to fall behind the drying rack, and make sure it stays propped up and doesn't fall through the cracks there.